Hello everyone. In this video we're going to cover the gustatory system. In other words, the sense of taste. So the sense of taste is a chemical sense. And there's a second chemical sense, which is smell. So you'll want to keep in mind that both taste and smell are chemical. Now let's talk about the sense of taste. So the gustatory system is a sensory system for taste. So stimuli are soluble chemical substances. So the gustatory receptors are clusters of taste cells that are found within the taste buds, and these line the trenches around tiny bumps on the tongue. So the receptors are not themselves taste buds, but they form the taste buds. Okay, so the taste buds are made up of multiple taste cells, and they're found actually in the trenches around the bumps. So let's have a look. Here we have our taste buds here, and the cells are actually in these trenches. So they're not on top of the tongue, they're within the little side things. Now we have 5 tastes: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and a new one called umami. Now a lot of previous research doesn't really talk about umami too much, but we now know that it does exist. And umami really means like savory. So we have sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and savory. Now, one thing that's a myth is that there's different sections of your tongue for different tastes. And that's not true, as these graphs kind of show, is that different parts of your tongue contain all 5, or here it's 4, but it also includes umami. It includes all 5 different taste cells. Okay, so there's not a specific part of your tongue that's better for sweet or salty. That's a myth. All parts of the tongue taste all the senses. So the perception of taste quality depends on complex patterns of neural activity. In other words, taste quality can depend on the number of taste cells that are activated. So activity initiated by the taste receptors. And then it also depends on like the intensity of it, as you know, how the brain processes it, that information. So there are basic taste preferences that can be innate. In other words, some you're kind of born with. There have been some taste preferences that are actually connected to genetics, such as whether or not you like the taste of cilantro. There's actually a gene that controls your perception of taste of cilantro, or also known as coriander, for those that call it that. And so for people that have this gene, then it actually will make cilantro taste like dirt, pretty gross. Or those that don't have the gene, such as myself, then we quite love cilantro because it tastes nice and fresh. So that would be an innate or born with preference. However, most of your taste preferences are learned. So the more you eat something, you tend to like it more. So kind of like, I don't know if you guys were the same, but when I first drank beer, I hated it. The more I drank it, I liked it more, and now I love beer. Okay, so that's a learned preference. So not everyone has the same ability to taste. So people can be born with different amounts of taste cells on their tongues, as well as different kind of amounts of nerves that help process that information. So you can kind of break people down into non-tasters, so they don't really taste anything, medium tasters, so that's most of the normal people, and then we have these super tasters. And the super tasters actually tend to have more of these tasting cells or more taste receptors than medium tasters. And non-tasters are usually born with a smaller amount of these taste cells than the normal population. So the variations in sensitivity means that when two people taste the same food, they won't necessarily have the same experience. And that's why people have different preferences in terms of candy. Some people like sweet food versus savory food more. And, some people like tomatoes and some don't. And it all has to do with how people process the information. Taste sensitivity can influence people's eating habits. Super tasters will actually generally have a better habit than non-tasters. And this is because super tasters can usually taste the chemicals that are in some more processed foods. So they actually tend to eat more organic, healthier foods, a cleaner diet. Whereas non-tasters, they can't really taste anything. So why bother eating all this healthy, expensive, organic food when they can eat a processed, less expensive food for the same caloric intake or the same for the same meal, because they can't taste any different. Also, there is a fun fact that women are more likely to be super tasters than men, which is really interesting, and might explain why some people, like their mom, might be a better cook than their dad. It might not be about skill, but because women are better able to tell for proper seasoning and stuff than men. Of course, there are plenty of men that are super tasters as well, and men can be just as great cooks as women. So, take it with a grain of salt. And then finally, we're going to talk about the perception of flavor. So flavor is a combination of both taste and smell, as well as the tactile sensation of the food. So in order to really get the full flavor of something, you need to be able to smell it as well as taste it, and then also be able to feel the texture. So like if you had like a Dorito flavored smoothie, the flavor of that's going to be different than the flavor of an actual Dorito because of the tactile sensation, as well as probably, it might smell different. So again, that's why sometimes things that say that they're a certain flavor won't actually remind you of the actual food it's supposed to be. And that's because will have a different tactile sensation as well as usually a different odor. And so odors are very important for the perception of flavor. And that's why sometimes when you have a cold or a stuffy nose, then it seems like some of your food it doesn't taste the same. And it actually, chemically, when we're talking about the senses, it does taste the same, but you're perceiving the flavor differently because you don't get that odor of it as well. So that's it for the taste video, and continue learning about different senses in other videos.